minutes late. Could I please have any suggested changes to the minutes?
A motion for the minutes first, James.
How about a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second? All in favor?
Wait, James,
Wait a
there are
minute.
corrections. Hold on.
Yeah, I have a very minor correction when we're talking about restarting our Town Together campaign with the Monadnock Ledger transcript. We restarted it in August, not upcoming in September. That's the only change I'd like to see.
Also, page 4, top of the page, instead of saying our town capital, it says out town capital. That's just minor, but it should be corrected.
We'd be happy to have
Out of town capital.
Right?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got two changes. We all accept those changes? Yes.
Yes.
All in favor of the revised minutes? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on. Approved. Okay, and I don't see Phil on.
Well, let's just do some of the other business then, James. You want to do the mask campaign?
Okay, let's then start with the Mask Up campaign.
Okay. Great.
Karen?
Yes, well, and Laura too. We just wanted to acknowledge the partnership between Monadnock Community Hospital and the town in getting those very large banners made up to put on our Welcome to Peterborough signs on all the main roads into town. I think they're wonderful and they are polite but clear and in keeping, I think, very much with the spirit of Peterborough. So I really just wanted to thank Laura. I also wanted to acknowledge the EDA members who took the window signs around to the business community, Megan and Bill and Jean and James, for your work in spreading the word and getting the signs out to the businesses. So thank you very much for that.
I'm curious how they were received by businesses. I was around town a little bit this weekend and I didn't see any, which is fine, but I'm just curious.
I had good feedback from several businesses. There were a number of the big box stores, for instance, that had to check with corporate and who knows where that would go. But most of the other businesses that I spoke with were more than willing to put the signs up and have. I should go back and take another look. They may have taken them back down again, but
which is fine. Well, we just wanted to be helpful, but I'm sure that some folks are using them and glad that we could work together on that.
Yeah.
Well, I agree, Bill. I'll go back and check up on mine because I gave them out, but many of them are very partially open.
Right.
Megan?
That's sort of what I hit in Depot Square as well. And, everyone was very happy to get the sign. There were just some people who were like not interested in putting it up. But like, I know Hobbs, Melissa, and Nitty Gritty all were like, yeah, I would take more. But Michaela at the Art Academy said no. And to put it up in that, there's like a community bulletin board. So I put it up in there.
Yeah.
And then the restaurants, I haven't been able to connect because I can't get the management and I don't want to give it to non-management. So I will get it to the restaurants this week. So
There's, I also did notice when I was going around that many of the businesses already had mask signs up. That was already there. So this would have been redundant, but so I was really happy to see that. So I think our business community has really stepped up and understands the value of asking folks to mask up. So that's all of what we wanted to accomplish, right? We didn't this sign or another sign, as long as there's signs. Perfect. Okay.
Jean?
So I felt that we had, excuse me.
well, you told me to keep mine in it. Jeez.
Well, except when I'm talking. I'm sorry. Okay, so
Now you're both muted.
So I had the same experience as Megan, but I did want to say that I felt that we did a good job getting the message out around the event down in New Ipswich. And I think that even though they weren't masking, we did get the governor to require masks in groups over 100. And even though that group did not mask up, I think it raised awareness in the businesses, and it got a lot more people on board with the importance of masking, because I have seen a lot more people masking recently. And I think the fact that, fingers crossed, we have not seen a spike recently, and hopefully will not over the next week, that we've done a good job. And I think that, you know, it's all in the right direction. We'll see what happens now that schools are opening. But I think that we can pat ourselves on the back as a community for having done a good job.
And thanks to all the members who did take them around. That took time, and that's really the only way it was going to be successful, is to make that personal contact.
Well, it gave us an opportunity to actually speak with the businesses too. So it worked all the way around, I think.
And we're also connecting the businesses up to some of them to things like Our Town Networking, which is a 2 times a month Zoom meeting, and also Our Town Capital. We're now getting some applications for investments. So again, we're trying to help the community, even though we haven't been able to read the whole article that Karen just sent out.
Oh, well,
about how to do that.
That's going to be a bit, James, to digest, but.
Oh yes, it'll take a couple days, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Yep.
If we're through, are you through, Karen?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, Bill and Megan, over to you.
You're muted, Bill.
All right, not a lot to report. Megan may disagree, although she's gone. Where she went. Anyway, we met with the marketing team last Thursday and discussed, and also met with the Monadnock Ledger Transcript. They're in the process of producing a couple of people profiles, you might say, in print to amplify the message of Our Town Together. We restarted that program with them, that collaboration with them at the beginning of August. Their grant monies are running out, so they needed to use them up through the month of August. So we're on track to finish up that program. We probably should discuss at some point in the future how successful it was, whether we want to continue it, and so on and so forth. But at this point, we're kind of winding things down.
Okay.
But in terms of sort of outcomes that you want to create out of that, just give the headline on that.
Well, it was part of our normal campaign to attract businesses to Peterborough and give them a good view of what our community is about. The Our Town Together project was Karen's brainchild, right? And it was to highlight contributions by various people in our community during this time of the pandemic. I think we're probably going to end that program with a profile of at least Ed Walker, who I think has made some very valuable contributions to our town in these trying times. I think Karen would agree to that. But otherwise, we don't have really any more nominations in the hopper.
I think we need to go back and revisit kind of what we want to do with Drum, and that should be a topic for next marketing committee. Right?
So, but for the EDA, I think we might.
Jane, you're hard to hear. Can you get closer?
Yeah. For the EDA, I think we might want to discuss when we're going to reopen the town, or has the town made a decision, or does the town even get to make that decision? It's really a decision of the businesses. So I think that given that the governor has said that we are open, we need to at least discuss how we respond to that. If we say, no, we're not open yet, then we can, but the marketing should come after that decision, I think.
Well, I wonder about, I mean, right now it is up to the businesses, right? The town hasn't said we're open, we're not open. The business community is determining how open they are. And right, and I think we are also waiting to see how the school reopening goes, right? And whether there is any spike, but we did just hear on Friday from the governor that our restaurants can all go to 100% seating inside. Whether they do or not is going to be interesting. So I'm planning to reach out to our restaurants today, tomorrow, to see what they're thinking about that and get a sense from them. So I do want to mention that I was able to secure a new list from the state of businesses in good standing for Peterborough. So I have a complete contact list, or very much more complete contact list for our business community now. So I'm working on getting that segmented. It's not an easy sorting to do it by type of business. So I'm going to be working on that so that I'll have more regular communication with our business community in the future. So that's, I just got that.
Great.
That's great. Well, but what I was just suggesting, James, is that we have, if what we're going to do is wait and see how the school openings go, then we should say, okay, next month, we should decide whether we want the marketing committee to move ahead with once more spending their time soliciting visitors for fall, who might be future residents, and go back to the original mission. If that maybe we make that decision and put it on the agenda for next month. Does that seem reasonable?
That sounds good.
We can do that. I think right now I'm wondering if it would make sense to have, right now it's Bill and Megan on the marketing committee, and I'm wondering if there are any other members of this group that want to be part of that conversation. Also.
Well, I think Jean is suggesting that we as a team, the EDA, make a decision on which direction we want to take the marketing, and then the marketing would implement that. I think that's what she's suggesting, Karen.
That's the full group as a discussion. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense to me. Yep.
Okay, Karen, just one related topic. I don't know whether we ought to be discussing this on our town networking meetings that we have, because Heather is in that meeting, you're in that meeting. Should this be part of that agenda, that we're talking to the people participating in the our town networking?
I'm not sure, James. Can we take that offline?
Yes, please. Okay, moving on. Can we go to Phil?
Phil has joined us, so I'm wondering.
Let's jump to Phil.
Okay, Phil, do you want to, can you turn your video on and there you go.
There we are. I'm not really there where it looks like I am.
It's where you wish you could be.
Yeah, this photo I think is somewhere around Walpole, and at one point I was playing around with how to do backgrounds on Zoom calls, since I would seem to be on hundreds of them, and this is the one that I got on there. Now I don't know how to get it off, or anyway, it's anyway, it's not bad. It could be worse. But anyway, well, thank you. Nice to see you all. I think I know most of you, or have met most of you at one point along the way. And just to give you the thumbnail background, I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Keene Chamber, which has members, roughly 500 members, something like that, in somewhere between 40 and 50 communities around the Monadnock region. actually including a couple in Massachusetts and some in Vermont. So that's one side of it. And as most of you know, on a personal note, I'm a resident homeowner of Peterborough. So I attend this kind of thing with a couple of angles of interest. But anyway, the reason that I wanted to, and I appreciate Karen asking me to join, was to give you an update on the Promoting the Region initiative that most of you have been aware of. I see Laura there. Laura's been on the task force that's been kind of guiding this effort over the past year or so. And we are now, as you might expect, during COVID, a lot of things kind of ground to a halt. And we've been kind of ramping up for the last several months and are looking to a fairly significant federal grant to help us kind of jumpstart this along. There, as many of you know, there are a bunch of federal grant opportunities that are somewhat similar to the usual kinds of grants, and some of them have a kind of a COVID recovery twist to them. And this particular one from EDA has that kind of COVID recovery twist to it. So we are about, I would say, 80 or 90% of the way to completion on that grant application. We are doing it as a co-applicant with Cheshire County, and that is for a couple of reasons. One is that Cheshire County has an outstanding federal grant writer who they have 8 or 10 federal grants, you know, in the works at any given time. And secondly, Cheshire County would act as the grant administrator should we be successful in getting an award. Our organization, kind of centered at the Greater Keene Chamber, would actually do the work of the program, and the staffing and other things for that is built into the grant application. There is another piece of funding we're hoping to hear from the state about. As some of you know, the governor carved out, this was going back a couple of months ago, carved out a couple of $1 million for chambers around the state, and we applied for that. And there's a lot of backstory for that, having to do with 501c6 organizations and things like that. But they asked for applications from 7 regions. They didn't want to get applications from 30 or 40 small chambers. They said, we just want to look at applications from 7 regions for how they might propose to use some of the money. And some of what we asked for is promoting the region related. It's kind of early things like research and stuff like that. So there's kind of a 2-pronged effort that we have going right now. We have not heard back about our application with the state. We have weekly meetings with Taylor Caswell, and we expect to hear back from them hopefully this week after they've had a chance to review all the applications with the Gopher committee. The Gopher committee has to sign off on it. So that's where we are with that. There's that piece of the puzzle, and then there's this federal grant. Where the town of Peterborough could be very helpful in this is in the federal grant side. There are, as you know, with almost all federal grants, a match requirement. And generally speaking, federal grant match requirements can be upwards of 50% of total project costs. In this particular slice of money, the match requirement is 20%, which is really good news if you think about how much that means you're leveraging those people who support it, how much that money gets leveraged, you know, kind of on a 4-to-1 basis. That's pretty good stuff. So we are trying to get our matches together, and some of the match will be in-kind match. That's very typical for federal grants, but the more cash match commitment you have, the better. in any grant application, and I'm sure Laura knows about this sort of thing. But as much as cash match you have, the better. The timing of this is that we are hoping to get the application in by next week, the end of next week, so that it can be reviewed by the EDA review committee in the month of September. They meet monthly on this. There is no one deadline for this grant that, you know, then it goes away. They review it every month in an ongoing way. So we hope to get all of that in right now. At least by September 4th is our deadline to get it in. We have put a number of feelers out for cash matches, and we have, as of this few minutes ago when I printed it out, we have seven or eight commitments, and I'll get into the numbers in just a second. And I'll give you some really rough numbers to give you a sense of the order of magnitude of what we're looking at. Where the application for the federal grant will be roughly $600,000, something like that. It may be a little shy of that. And this is for a 3-year branding and marketing program. So that's the number. And if you look at 20% of that number, that's $120,000 is what the match is. What we're trying to do is get to between $50,000 and $100,000 in cash match. We feel that that will give us the most competitive application possible, and then fill the rest out with in-kind contributions. So right now we have somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 in cash match commitments, with several other asks still out there. And what we're hoping to do is if the town of Peterborough can get behind this. I think you received some description of the program. Is that right, Karen? That prior to this, if the town of Peterborough could get behind it, that would be not only important and meaningful in a financial way, but it would also be very important, I think, and meaningful in a symbolic way in terms of support from various parts of the region geographically. What this means from a practical standpoint is that a commitment would need to be made that stipulates in a letter. It's very simple, says that the funds are available, the funds are dedicated for this purpose, and the funds are not otherwise encumbered. Those are the general criteria for matches. You don't have to send any money right now. This only becomes relevant if there's an award. So that's where we stand with that. So I've chattered enough. If anybody has any questions about that, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Laura.
Phil, I'm wondering, just as a recap, if you could hit the high points of the goals of this grant. So much work has been done with you and Jamie spearheading this, and just to give us a refresher would be helpful.
Yeah, great question, Laura. Here's the way to think of it. This region has not been branded or marketed other than the word Monadnock ever, or at least since the 1930s and the Monadnock Region Association and those kinds of things. The goal of it, the genesis of it is that we are an aging population, and that we are not going to be able to fill our workforce and other things by doing it all organically. We have to reach out beyond our region to invite people to come here to go to school, to come here to join the workforce, and to come here as tourists. So those are the three primary tracks that are involved in this effort: tourism, workforce development, and higher ed student recruitment. So those are the ideas. The program is designed so that the first year of it will be a research and branding effort. So that by research, that means going around the region internally, but also getting some perception analysis from some target markets outside the region. And then after that, there'll be a communications plan, which will involve some advertising and marketing outside the region, primarily outside the region. There may be some inside the region as well. So that's the general idea of the program. I should say that the research part of it, which we hope will be covered, at least start to be covered with money we get from Gopher funds, is going to be done by the UNH Survey Center and Andy Smith and his group over in Durham. And we've talked to Andy, and he's given us an estimate as to what it would take, for example, to do a broad survey of employers in the Monadnock region to see exactly what our workforce needs are. We all talk about workforce all the time. Our workforce is a problem. We know it's a problem, all that kind of stuff. And I maintain that we have no idea what the problem actually is, other than anecdotally. So this would be a way to set a baseline in terms of what the actual needs are across different sectors and across different skill sets as of now, and then give them an opportunity, the employers an opportunity to project what they think they might be 2 or 3 years from now. Obviously, any employer is going to have a difficult time being very precise about that, but we might be able to get some sense of what the direction is. So that's an example of the kind of research that we'll be doing.
Jean?
Phil, are you aware of the Monadnock Employers Forum that we've had going on here for 2 years? That's run by
Jerry Gillis.
who's it run by, guys?
Jerry Gallus?
Yeah, Jerry Gallus's group.
Yes, I've met with them, and I've met with Jerry, and I've spoken with Jerry, and we would hope that group would be very much a part of and participate in this process.
Bill?
Phil, hi, Phil.
Hi.
Have you gotten any commitments from any of our adjacent towns? For instance, the town of Jaffrey. Have you had contact with them, and do they have representation on your group?
I don't have the list of names in front of me right now. I'm not sure that the town of Jaffrey is represented on the group in the group right now. The group is not intended to be it's sort of a closed group. It kind of morphs and people come onto it. And so if there was somebody from the town of Jaffrey that was interested, I think it would be important that they be represented for a lot of reasons, including Millipore and some obvious things there. But certainly if somebody from the town or somebody from an employer in the town of Jaffrey would like to be part of it, we'd welcome that. We do have Laura, like I said, is on the task force. We have somebody from Monadnock Paper, for example. You know, I'm thinking about people in that part of the region. So yes, we welcome somebody from Jaffrey.
Bill, could you speak to how large the task force is and how long it's been working? I'm not sure everybody on the call is familiar with it.
Yeah, this effort to kind of brand the region and market the region goes back several years. I mean, at least 5 that I can think of, with another effort that was more arts oriented, not kind of comprehensive branding. And Jamie Trowbridge and I were both involved in that. And when that kind of ran out of steam and never had any money or resources to put behind it, we sort of said, well, let's see if we can see what chambers in the region can do. And Jamie, who's on our board, agreed to kind of spearhead that effort. So we kind of adopted at the urging of our board of directors about 12 to 18 months ago, they kind of gave us the green light to go assess the feasibility of getting this done. So that's what that's about. The task force itself is about 15 to 20 people. Does that sound right, Laura? I think it's somewhere in that
At least, yeah.
area. Yeah, it may be even more than that. And it has people from from higher ed, like Keene State and Franklin Pierce. It has people from manufacturing. It has people from municipal groups or towns, cities and towns, City of Keene, Town of Peterborough. Rodney Bartlett was part of it for the beginning, for the first year or so, and then Karen has kind of jumped in and taken that role to represent Peterborough since then. But yeah, it's about 15 or 20 people, and a couple of people have dropped off because they've changed jobs or moved out of the area or something like that, and other people have come in. But 15 or 20 is about it.
Right. So these grants really do represent kind of the next chapter in the progress of this movement, of this project, right? I mean, it's the first time where we actually have the potential for some really big money to make this thing go.
That's true. We had originally envisioned, and Laura probably will recall this, we had originally envisioned kind of the reverse scenario where we would be looking for the base of the financial support to come from stakeholders within the region, whether they be cities and towns or companies. COVID kind of turned that on its head a little bit. It became not the best time to be asking corporations for significant donations. And so we kind of flipped it around and said, okay, let's see if we can find some federal grant money to kind of get us started and kind of fill in with some ongoing corporate and municipal support. After 3 years, we hope it doesn't go away. And, so there'll be a question of how do you sustain it over time, and at what level do you sustain it over time? And that's unlikely to be from federal grants.
Right. So how do you see, Phil, how do you see, so, Peterborough has its, this EDA has a marketing committee. How do you see like local marketing playing with the regional initiative? How does that kind of work?
Well, there's going to be a huge effort to reach out to every town in the region to engage them, and we hope that'll happen in an ongoing way. The idea here is not that we should that we're going to supplant any marketing efforts that any individual organization is doing or any individual town is doing. Whatever any individual town or organization wants to do, they should do. This is not about that. This is about creating a regional brand that kind of sits separately, that hopefully people can incorporate and leverage for their own purposes. Much the same way that we already do that with the state efforts in the Division of Travel and Tourism Development. So we're already used to that kind of thing. But this is an effort to have a regional brand. I mean, I'll give you a simple example of something that's always sort of amazed me. As a resident of Peterborough, I always kind of feel kind of cool because I'm moving around the region a lot on a regular basis. When I get back home, I see these beautiful signs that say "Welcome to Peterborough." It's awesome, and it doesn't matter kind of which way you can be coming up through Sharon, and there's still a sign coming from that direction. There is nothing that says you're welcome to the Monadnock region anywhere on any of the state roads that we come in on. So there is no kind of identity. We use the word Monadnock very casually amongst ourselves, and we sort of know what that means roughly. But ask somebody 50 miles from here what it means, and they have no idea, unless they've come to climb the mountain, which maybe they have. But if you're marketing to people in Hartford or New York or Philadelphia or DC, or they don't have any idea what Monadnock is. And our timing may be kind of interesting actually around this whole thing, because as you all have probably read, the pandemic has kind of caused a lot of people who live in urban areas to be, thinking about relocating. If they're going to be working remotely, why not work remotely from someplace other than the middle of a very expensive big city kind of lifestyle? So if we can take advantage of that and really get in there and compete, I think it will benefit us. We are in a competitive posture with other regions around the Northeast. And I, the senator will cover her ears for a minute. We're competing with the rest of New Hampshire. I don't say that very often, but if we don't think that we're competing with the rest of New Hampshire, you're wrong. And my efforts are, when I deal with Taylor Caswell and his team and Lori Harnois and those kind of people, I try to make sure that at least when they're marketing the state of New Hampshire, they mention the Monadnock region. Often they don't even do that. Often it's all about the I-93 corridor or the I-95 corridor. They don't even mention Western New Hampshire at all. And so, that's a consistent drum that we beat. But rather than keeping on beating that drum, we're going to have to take some action ourselves. We're going to have to become a more effective voice in marketing and in public policy advocacy and some other things in order to compete not only with the rest of New Hampshire. And, I'd much rather have a company come to New Hampshire and go locate in Nashua rather than Keene or Peterborough, rather than locate in Albany. Sure, I'd rather have that happen. But on the other hand, we'd like to have people come here. And I don't need to tell this group, but if we don't have a workforce in the next over the next 10 or 20 years, we have no chance of attracting any businesses. It used to be that people went where the work was, or where the employers worked. Migration over the last century from rural to urban areas and all of that. Right now it's the opposite. Employers go where the workforce is. So if we don't take that approach, and if we're not out there competing, then we're losing ground because the regions around us are competing heavily, whether it's in Massachusetts or Vermont or in other parts of New Hampshire. So we need to be aggressive.
Laura?
I want to just recall that when we first started talking about this, the ask was going to be a 3-year pledge from businesses and other organizations' education. Do you see this now, Phil, being this initial match enough to get us through those 3 years? And then we would probably have to step up again, but just to give us a sense of the future.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Laura. Yes, that's the short answer to the question is yes. The idea here is that we make a commitment for 3 years, that those are doing the cash match, make a commitment for 3 years. We'll face we're talking about sustainability of this, and at a point where we're able to kind of measure the track record to see how effective it is and all that kind of stuff, where if it looks like it's really got legs and it's really having an impact, I'd like to see an article on the warrants for every town meeting in the region, to say, we're going to kick in a certain amount to keep this going, and likewise with companies. But yes, this initial commitment is a 3-year commitment, or if it was $6,000 or something like that, then you're thinking in terms of $2,000 a year or some. So
the payments can be made over 3 years.
They can. They can.
Okay, as I understand it, you're looking for a commitment or know about a commitment within the next week in terms of what you need to know. Is that correct?
Correct.
And given that, one of our agenda items is a financial report from Karen. So we probably have to move to that report in order to be able to answer the question about what's going to happen in the next week.
So James, I'm wondering, should we let Phil go and we'll have this conversation about the money, and then I can get back to him about what your decision.
I think that's what we have to do unless there's any other questions for Phil.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Phil.
Phil, thank
Okay.
you so much for all
Thank you,
that.
Thank you
Bill.
very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, Karen, it's over to you.
Thank you. So I asked Leo Smith for an update on the two accounts that the EDA has access to. As you know, the operating account always is a $5,000 amount each year at the beginning. So that's there, that 5,000. The warrant article that was passed several years ago has a balance, but I want to what I need to tell the group is that Leo reminded me that this money expires in 2021. So there is currently a balance of $17,990 in that account, but it must be used by the end of the fiscal year 2021. Which
Okay.
we are in. So we just entered it in at the beginning of July. So that gives us till the end of June. So those are the two funds that you have at your discretion.
Do we have any known commitments during the next year?
Well, right now our commitment to drum has been on a 3-month basis, but I'm not aware that we have anybody aware that we do?
Bill?
I don't have the numbers in front of me at all. How much are we paying Drum?
$13.50 a month.
$13.50 a month.
And so we're using 3 months of that?
Well, we commit like in 3-month cycles is what we have been doing, James,
But what have we committed at this point?
I think through September.
through September.
So
So the group is
Megan,
going
is
to
that
have
right?
to,
Do you remember?
I'm sorry.
I was just getting verification from Megan.
Through
I don't have-
September.
So actually, we're going to have a discussion about whether we're going to renew the contract with them or extend the contract with them.
Right. Well, I think you can, knowing what you have, even if you tentatively thought about an extension with Drum and figuring out how much you would need to set aside, then you could look at what you might have available to be making a commitment to the promoting the region piece.
any comments about a commitment to promote this region?
It seems like a good use of funds, if we're putting in 20% and it's getting matched by the other 80%. Maybe we look at our drum commitment and, scale that back a little bit so that we can make a contribution.
You know what? The town of Peterborough, the EDA of Peterborough has been doing what Phil claims he's going to be doing in the future. We're already doing it. Our outreach to communities around, through Drum, they've been doing a great job, I think, in terms of social media outreach, attracting attention to the town of Peterborough. I don't see anything going on with this regional concept for at least another year, because right now they're in the mode of just trying to get some money so they can do something. So I would very strongly oppose turning back our commitment as we've been proceeding, to be honest with you.
Is there a way for the group to do both?
I agree with Bill's sentiments in several. I just wrote to Jerry Gallus what kind of contact he's had with the group, the branding group. I think what Phil is talking about is extending what Jerry's been working on, 2-3 years, and has done quite a good job at. I mean, COVID's kind of put a dent in things, but he has done extensive work in that direction. And I think that the work that Drum has done is amazing, and our social media presence and our videos and so forth are very strong. Now, if we look at it from a systemic, a larger point of view of what's going to be good for our town, we want to be collaborating with Jaffrey. Jaffrey is where the workers are. Jaffrey is, a source of more affordable housing. Jaffrey and Greenfield, if we can get broadband extended to Greenfield and Temple and all our corners, so that the housing there becomes viable for workforce and remote workers and students. We have a very strong center for attracting the workers of the future who are remote workers. And what has been happening over COVID is actually a change in the way workforces develop. We have seen huge companies telling all their workers to stay home. And so when we look at that, we see that we are an ideal spot for that kind of worker. And what we need to do is to extend our telecommunications so that our housing that now is not acceptable to someone or not viable for someone who's doing remote work becomes so. But I feel that we are in a very strong position. If we could, I'm not against giving a little bit of money to them in conjunction with Rivermead and the hospital and other parts of other corporations in the town to help reach that 20%. But to cut back on what we're doing with Jerry and with Drum, I think would be a huge mistake.
Want to just make a comment. I've been part of this since the early days, and one of the things that really helped me to get my head around it is the overarching marketing campaign for the region. Like when you look at New Hampshire, there's the White Mountains, there's the Seacoast, and Monadnock doesn't have that same recognition, I think, outside of our region. And like Jamie said, the match potential with this is incredible, and it would be nice if Peterborough could at least, show some level of commitment. Whether it's, it's not going to take much for them to get up to that 100,000. If you think about big businesses in the area, maybe $500 or $1,000 a year for the next 3 years, just to show that. Sure. Is that, I don't know if that's realistic. If our budget is 17,000, it looks like Drum, the contract with their good work is taking up the majority of that. Maybe, can I throw out $1,000 a year for total contribution of 3?
Well, can I ask a quick question? Karen, you've mentioned that we have a $5,000 budget per year.
Yes.
In addition to the 17,000?
Yeah, it has been, it's in there. Yeah, that's it's supplies, services, it's 5,000. That's what it's in there for.
What happens to Drum after the 17,990 is spent? Does that have to be, reallocated as part of another budget year, or
well, it does. It's not so the money that Drum is being paid for, Jamie, what came out of a warrant article that was at special town meeting, not a special town meeting. It was a special warrant article at town meeting where $70,000, I believe was the number, was allocated for marketing the town. And it was to be used for marketing, period, the town. So if we run out of money, and that was like 5 years, I think, Jean, it was it was a 5-year commitment, and so when that money runs out, I would expect the town would like probably to know how well did that money, how well was it spent, and what did it achieve, and before this group might go back to ask for more.
Okay, we now have a proposal for $1,000 per month for the next 3 years, per year for the next 3 years. Any discussion about that proposal? I personally think it sounds like a good idea in terms of the use of our, well, it's more than 23,000 if we look at 3 years, but it's maybe 30-some thousand over 3 years that we have available. We'd be using 3,000 of it for this purpose. I think that sounds like a good idea, Laura.
Where did you come up with those numbers, James? You go back around that again?
That's what Karen just told me.
5,000 a year.
5 times 3.
Oh, okay. Okay.
5,000 a year for 3 years plus 17,000 is like 38,000 that we have available to play with.
Well, that 17,000 goes away at the end of the
At the
fiscal
end
year.
of June next year.
Next
So
year.
it behooves us to expend those funds. But we're not dipping into that as far as I'm concerned.
So what you would do though, so just to be clear, number one, you would not be having to write a check for those funds or expend them unless the grant is approved.
Yes.
So that's number one. Two is we would have to encumber the funds if they're coming out of the 17,990, which is the right place for them to come to. We would have to encumber the $3,000 so that we don't lose it at the end of June next year. So that if you made that commitment, that we would have to just make sure that we encumbered them.
Well, our commitment to drum currently is what? We would have 10 more months?
Yes.
10
Well,
more months of if we were to continue our 3-month thing. So that's 13,500 right there.
right.
And we have 17,000 available. So it works.
Okay. Any other discussion about this proposal? I second it, and we got Laura making the proposal, 1,000 a month for the next 3 years as a commitment if it's approved in the match. Bill.
Can I ask a question now? This is a fiscal question, but if the funds are no longer available at the end of this fiscal year, will they be available 2 years from now or 3 years from now? If you encumber them?
When you encumber them, then they are.
Okay.
So we could, if we need it, we could encumber part of this 3,000 from that 17,000 if we're not spending it within the next year.
I don't know what you just said, James.
I just say we could use it if we haven't used it for
Yes.
other purposes. We
Correct.
could commit it beyond the next year.
Well,
Sounds
you
Okay.
would not be able to commit it. I mean, the only way you could use this money is if it's encumbered to be used beyond it. So,
Yes.
but otherwise, whatever is left at the end of June goes away.
Jump in and just
So
see
you
if it's
don't want to
important.
spend.
We'll have no problem committing it. We'll have no problem committing it. Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor of this proposal, say aye.
Aye.
Megan, I can't.
What did she do?
Oh.
She did boiled?
Megan, did you vote aye for this proposal?
Abstain? Yes, can I abstain from voting? Is it possible to abstain?
If you
I
wish.
vote, I vote no. I'm sorry. I vote no.
No?
Yes.
So you have 5 yes, 1 no.
5 yes, 1 no.
Okay.
Okay. So we can move forward with that, Karen, in your hands.
Okay, I'll take care of it.
And I just want to say I really appreciate Bill's word of caution, and so that's a very good point.
Okay,
Okay. Anything else on finance, Karen?
that's all I had for you.
Okay, and then I've got the last headline that I'll give on the housing project. it's really going extremely well with the hospital to be building affordable housing on their property. And the next event is a meeting that's taking place between Keith, who's the Chief Development Officer for the Southwestern Community Services, and Richard, who's the Chief Financial Officer of the hospital. We have a meeting, or it's a Zoom meeting, on September 6th to discuss how this program might be put together to create an initial project of housing of something like maybe 36 homes, apartments, and maybe double that over maybe 3 years, again, using hospital property and managed by the nonprofit Southwestern Community Services with funds raised for a nonprofit to actually build this building and then make it available at affordable rent. And so it is moving forward extremely positively. Both of these men, I think, are really fantastic people to help manage this program. And so we'll learn more about this in a few days when the next Zoom takes place. And unless there's any questions about that, I'll leave it until our next meeting to follow up on what might happen. There will be questions about what will the town do to support this in terms of the tax rate on this property. And also how much property and what property will we use, and then who will be managing it in terms of Southwest or somebody else in terms of the owner nonprofit to actually drive this. But the basic message is, I think we're going to build something there on the hospital property, and I think it's a perfect place to do it.
That's wonderful, James.
Is that enough of a headline?
Great. And you'll keep us posted, yes?
I didn't hear that. What?
You'll keep us posted?
Oh yeah, it'll be on the next agenda.
Great.
But the next meeting will be September 21st at 11 a.m.
Perfect.
Yep.
Everybody do that?
Yes. So I just want to say that the information that I sent to you guys earlier today, that article, I started to read it, and it's got so many good ideas in it, and I'm just really interested. I'm using it as brain food for the group in terms of what might bubble up for you as you read it, and so I'd love for you to just feed back to me anything that speaks to you, or you think there's something we should, pursue here, because I think there are a number of really nice ideas there that could be helpful in our community. So
okay.
Just want to leave that there.
All right. Otherwise, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor?
So Bill and Laura, okay.
Bye.
There you go.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Karen.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Good
you.
meeting.
I'm glad you got rid of the hackers.
Thank you. Me too.